Welcome to the Business Leader Spotlight. The Business Leader Spotlight is bringing attention to those in our community making a difference in business. It is also an opportunity to identify the skills they have learned and applied to get where they are. And now, let us go into this week's interview.
Thank you for joining us today. We're here on the Business Leader Spotlight, and I've got Greg Aguilar with me. Good afternoon, Greg. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Michael?
Doing great, thanks. So tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're doing right now, Greg.
Well, Michael, I just recently retired last year from the military. I served for 20 years. I was in the Army. I started off as an enlisted combat medic, and then I got the crazy idea of commissioning, so I became a medical admin officer. And toward the last 5 years of my career, I started working within the IT healthcare field. I deployed twice to Iraq. First time was in 2003, just a month shy from when the war started. And then again in 2006, 2007. While I was in the Army, I was able to complete my MBA in IT management. I just somehow found the time to go to school during crazy schedules and kids and everything going around. And right before I retired, I was able to complete my certification towards becoming a project manager professional, so my PMP certification.
Oh, wow, that's great. You had a very active career. Now, just for the audience sake, with my background, I understand it's not always easy to go enlisted to officer. So can you talk a little bit about that process of, one, what made you decide to do that, and also two, kind of how you got there?
Yeah, so early in my career, I had wanted, when I first came, I had a high school diploma and just really ambitious, wanted to do a challenge. I came in as a private, and I'd say within 4 or 5 years, I was like, hey, I want to become an officer. I saw how the training, the outlook, it was almost a completely different world, and I wanted to be a part of that. So initially, my first packet didn't go through. I was a corporal at the time. Mm-hmm. And back then it was, I hate to show my age, but it wasn't an email. I just got a letter in the mail that says, hey, thanks for playing, but you're not accepted.
Okay.
So I actually tossed that dream to the side and didn't think about it for quite some years. And it wasn't until a soldier asked me about the program that I was trying for. It was called the Green to Gold program. And once I started researching the program to provide this information to the soldier, I realized there was an additional option for active duty. So then I was like, you know what? While I'm providing this soldier this information and helping someone out, I'm going to go ahead and try to put my packet in again. Wow. So the rest is history. I put the packet in, got accepted, and went through the ROTC program. I was in San Antonio at the time. I went through U2SA Roadrunners program and attended school. So I was literally a paid military student for almost 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And it kind of goes back to the old saying, it's just when you're helping someone out, that's when you benefit the most. And ironically, that's how I was able to find out more about the program and just retry at the dream, if you will, again.
And I was going to touch on that point. It was, very interesting how you looking at somebody else and helping somebody else out
right
opened the door for you to be able to step into your dream itself. So that was great. And I can imagine working with giving somebody else that other information just by chance. Do you happen to know if they ever completed the process themselves, the soldier that you were helping out with?
I personally wasn't able to, because by that soldier at the time was still going through what's called AIT, the Advanced Individual Training, and I was an instructor at the time. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to see or keep up and see how they went. But since that time, I've been able. There's other people that have noticed the path I went through, and I've been able to help them. I want to say at least out of the 5 I helped, at least 3 of them have gone through the program and commissioned as lieutenants, being prior enlisted.
Oh wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Great. So as you transitioned out of your service in the Army, you joined the John Maxwell Team. How'd you end up finding out about the John Maxwell Team? Kind of a little bit of history. Tell me a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So at the time, first of all, I've read John Maxwell books. He's pretty popular, especially in the military population. And at the time, I didn't know about the program. I didn't know about the team. But I had my cousin who's in the program. His name's Dr. Joe Fierro. Mm-hmm. I was in Puerto Rico at the time. This was back in 2017. I was there supporting with recovery after Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico. And anyway, we began talking, and he started telling me about the program that he had joined a couple of years prior. And I mean, once he told me about it, and I realized, how you can build your own business, and just the value it brings to everyday lives, and very similar to how it did for me after reading his books.
Right.
It was just too much for me to pass by. I had to join. So I joined back in 2018. And you can attest, I mean, that online platform is out of this world. It's a huge university body of knowledge. It covers all the John Maxwell books, how to present it, how to market and sales, establishing your contract. I mean, it's everything. And I just love being a member.
Oh yeah, it's great. I can speak for myself, and it seems like we actually joined right at the same time.
Yeah, you were. Of course, it's in Orlando, but yeah,
yes.
You went about the same time. And,
yeah. So it's one of those things. Like even for myself, John Maxwell has been somebody that I've been reading since the late '90s, and having this opportunity to work with him, and be mentored by him. That's the other piece. I don't know if everybody has, or realizes that there is that mentorship piece as well with John Maxwell, and just the whole faculty with the John Maxwell team. It's great. And, for personal development itself, it really shows you what's available and what other steps or additional steps you can take yourself and go from there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to find out about, kind of in combination with that, you're also resilience building leader. You're part of the resilience building leader program, and you're one of the trainers on the team. So Can you tell me a little bit about that program, how you found out about it, and what got you interested in going down that pathway?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So I saw the RBLPT on someone's title on LinkedIn, how you can, after your name, put your certifications and your degree after that.
Yes.
And I had never seen that before. So me just being naturally curious / nosy, I had to go look it up. So I went to their website, resiliencebuildingleader.com, and I learned how impactful and well organized all the lessons and material put together. The way it pieces together like a perfect puzzle, and it really encompassed it, just the stages of the learning it goes through, and not to mention all the learning's done through Zoom. It's individual, one-on-one. We're talking through the lessons that we were assigned to cover the week prior, and we're just talking it out. And it really helps you. It definitely helped me voice out things that I've never had to voice out before. We all have those kind of deep thoughts about things, about how teams should be, but just actually having to verbally say it out loud. It makes you reflect on your past experiences. Honestly, I wish I joined a program like this a lot early on in my career.
Right. And that's the really interesting thing is I've been looking into going down that road, and I just got the confirmation email saying I can go down that road, go down that road as well. And, since you're one of the trainers, and as part of the when your registration, you may be getting a contact from me to say, hey,
even better.
Have a little bit more opportunity to get to know you and work with you a little bit more, because, being that you have your, background in the Army, I have my background in the Marine Corps, a little bit different, but very similar paths. I didn't do the 20 years just because when I got out, I was a little bit more hard-headed and decided, hey, I'm going to go into the workforce. At the same time, but having somebody, there is a lot to be said about somebody who can understand the differences between learning military leadership and how we were taught versus, I'll say, civilian leadership and how they're taught. There are some similarities there. Leadership is leadership in whatever the organization. At the same time, there are some differences in how we're taught them. Now, I was in the Marine Corps in the mid 90s to the late 90s, and I know even since then things have changed drastically. But there's still that camaraderie, and we understand that there's certain things that we can say to each other that we just understand. But hey, this is the way the military is. And I think that's one of the things that really keyed me into this program, because like you, I saw a lot of people with this designation on their LinkedIn profile, and I was like, what is this? And then when I saw you got it, I was like, hey, somebody I know I can get some information from. So I really do appreciate you sharing kind of your background with it and how you came across it, because it does seem like it has that ability to draw out a lot of those unspoken pieces, or help you put to words those things that you can sense, but you
Right.
didn't necessarily have a way to describe it. You just could see a picture of it, but didn't have the words for it.
Right, and it's a pretty, for me it was a very, I almost want to say magical moment, because it's like a light goes off,
Okay.
and again, when the material starts building on you, it starts making, you start being able to make more. There's always a sense to it, but applying it to you individually, and that's what's really great. I mean, it's a leadership certification. It's not like a tech one where you're not. This is really dealing with leadership, and
Right.
and it's given this times now, you see how impactful leadership is too. So happy for you. I'm welcome aboard.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it is one of those times, especially now, where environmentally there's so many different unknowns.
Right.
As you know, and I know, that leadership really takes a stance right now, because people are looking for one direction. Okay, how do I get there? What do I do next?
Right.
All of those different questions, and leadership is a big part of being able to do that, whether it's in a titled position or it's in a more informal, influence-built position where, hey, I can help you get to where you're going.
Absolutely.
And being able
Yes.
to provide that for them. And
Yes.
that kind of segue into one of the volunteer activities that you're involved in is with Hire Heroes.
Mm-hmm.
So you become a mentor in there. Can you tell me a little bit about that, what Hire Heroes is and how they do their process?
Yeah, so Hiring Heroes, it's a nonprofit organization that provides free job search support to U.S. military, active duty, even veterans that have been out for a while, and to include their spouses. I've been able to help to date at least 6 veterans with their transition. As a matter of fact, tomorrow in the afternoon, I'm scheduled to help another service member with their LinkedIn profile. But so that's one of the services that as a volunteer, we're able to help with. As mentioned, the LinkedIn reviews. We also provide mock interviews, any resume revisions, and it can be just as simple as having a conversation. Hey, how do I just engage future employers?
Oh, wow. That's a great help, because I know for myself, it would have been nice to have somebody to talk to through that process, because as you know, that there is a different shift. The words you use and the way you use those words are different when you're outside of the military, and people don't necessarily always understand that. And having somebody who's made that transition is very helpful.
Yes, it is.
So how did you become involved with Hire Heroes?
So honestly, this volunteering has been something I've been wanting to do for a while.
Okay.
I see it all the time on LinkedIn profiles of, how they volunteer, and I always think, man, I want to do something like that. And honestly, it's just finding the time. Mm-hmm. Well, lo and behold, with the lockdown with COVID-19, I felt like that was my calling. I was, you know what, this is a good opportunity for me to see some moment, because I know there's a lot of people right now that need help. So that's what prompted me. I went into the website, applied to be a volunteer. Luckily, I got accepted, and it just feels really good being able to lend a hand out, as you mentioned, being able to be that guide for someone to say, hey, I went through what you're going through. I completely understand, and hopefully, I'm able to help you through your process as well.
Right. That's always that. Like I said, whatever branch of the service they're in, they know, okay, the person on the other end understands this. They know a little bit something, and we can share terminology, even though it may not be, we didn't serve necessarily at the same time in the same places in the same branch, but we do have this common bond across the process, and it helps. When you're working with those transitioning veterans, what are you finding that the biggest concerns that they have are, or any of the biggest concerns, or even some of the just your learnings from working with those transitioning veterans?
Well, a good question, first of all. For me, I'm speaking from me personally and from what I've witnessed as well. Mm-hmm. It's just being more aware of your accomplishments, because I think a lot of service members kind of don't see the value of the skills that they bring. some people call it soft skills. I call it necessary skills versus the hard skills. And just learning how to translate all those things that you accomplish into civilian terms to where it can be easily understood on the other end. And another challenge I find is that, when people are in the military, it's everything. It's their who, their what, their why. And when they get out, it's like you have to find that out all over again. You have to almost rediscover yourself and reinvent yourself. So that can definitely be a journey for a lot of people. And I know personally it was for me to try to rediscover all those things and see where, as they say, what I'm going to do when I get older, type of thing.
Yes.
But yeah, it's been quite the journey for me as well.
Yes. Those are always challenges. Even looking back at my career, sometimes I overlook those things where it was like, well, that was just a part of the job. That's what we were supposed to do. You didn't know that's this thing, it translates to this.
Right.
You know, like, because before I got off and went on terminal leave, I had to go through NCO's course and all of those different courses where it's like, no, this is a leadership training course. And, all of those different pieces, my staff NCOIC, he left, was deployed right before I left, and I became the department head. For me, it was like, okay, well, that's what you don't think about, those changes in billets, and where it's like, okay, you're just an NCO, but you're filling a staff NCO billet.
Right.
There's a whole different view on that versus what you were doing to what you're doing now. And a lot of that I know I had a tough time with is figuring out, okay, what are the words to be able to say? How does this translate? So having somebody who's made that transition, such as yourself, and being able to talk to other veterans and remind them that, hey, when people say thank you for your service, or remind you of that service that you performed for the country, it's not just the physical act of, where those, brothers and sisters who have gone to war. There's the other side of it where it's, no, you were doing something that many other people had the choice. They said no, and you said yes to.
Very small population. Yeah.
Exactly. And that brotherhood, that, that family that we all become a part of, and making sure that we don't sell ourselves short. So I think that's a great give back to the community that you're doing. And I can only imagine how thankful the participants are in having somebody like yourself being there for them. So I really do applaud you for doing that work.
Yeah, it feels good doing it.
That's great. So one of the other things I had, I was digging around doing some research on you before this, is I found your podcast.
Right.
So it's Revived Thinking. So tell me a little bit about your vision for what you want to do with your podcast.
Well, the way I see the podcast, as far as what the way I envision it for is a place for leaders. It can be both new and seasoned, just to listen and maybe take away a valuable thought, maybe a valuable method, and use it, implement it in their workplace. Mm-hmm. And in order for their team members to feel more productive, maybe make work a little bit more enjoyable and fulfilling. Maybe not just for themselves strictly, but for their team members as well. So I see it as a place to kind of just plug in, either between on your commute to work, to or from work, or that's when most people listen to podcasts. I know that's when I listen to podcasts, or maybe at home on a weekend and just take something valuable in. Maybe and I see it as a privilege, as being able to take someone's ear and attention for those minutes, and hopefully make an impact within those minutes that they're listening to my podcast.
Yeah, so I was able to catch one of your podcasts, and it was situational leadership.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That was one I really appreciate that one, because I haven't heard many people talk about situational leadership and being able to manage, to comprehend that leadership has to transform depending upon who you're leading and what context you're leading in. And I think you, with that podcast, you were able to touch on those nuances with it, because I like to think about leadership. It can be taught, but a lot of times the details of it are caught, and you were able to convey that in the message. If you don't mind, if you could share I know I'm putting you on the spot with this one.
No, you're good.
Just a couple of minutes about, your thinking behind situational leadership, and just give us a little brief blurb about it, if you don't mind.
Yeah. And there's a reason why I did that as my first episode, is because I just feel it, again, just like you, I feel like that's kind of a subject that's not really talked about too much. And I think when people think of terms of leadership, they think of it kind of as a one-way style type of thing. It's just, you always hear, well, develop your style and then go with it. And I think that's true. I think you generally have a baseline style of, that's your personality, that's how you are. Right. But in order to influence other people, and that's what ultimately I feel leadership is, you have to be able to adjust to that person, especially when you're, I don't want to get into different generations or anything like that, but right. Just different. I would just say different personalities yes. of how people are motivated. And so being able to identify that, being able to adjust your style to, again, influence. And because some people may not like an over dominant person telling them what to do, or there might be someone that does look for that in their leader, someone that is assertive. So it's just being able to situationally adjust yourself with the ultimate goal of being more productive, having a deeper connection with your team members.
Right. Oh yeah, that's great. That's really good. So one of the other things, you have your own business right now, and it's called Revive Consulting.
Yes.
So what's the market? Who are the people that you serve with your business?
So very similar to the Revive Thinking podcast, it served towards supervisors, managers, bottom line leaders, or anyone that is in a position of influence. That's who my main audience is. And when I say leader, I also mean, I feel even if you don't quote unquote have a job per se, you can be a leader in your household, right. Because, our children look up to us in that leadership role. So it applies to not necessarily the corporate office. Leadership kind of covers a broad range of things.
Oh yeah, it does. And it's always a challenge to sometimes help people to understand that just because you don't wear a title, you don't sit in a position,
yeah, right.
You do have certain amount of leadership. You have influence with your peers, other people inside of the department, and even some cases up across the organization, because a team leader over here, a manager in this department, right. And they look to you to help them, or to at least give direction or help. You set a standard for them, and they look at that and they say, hey, you know what, this person does it this way, and they look at that and they keep that going. So it's always a interesting way to be able to help others see that in themselves. And,
yes.
and sometimes that's more of the challenges, because it's like, well, I'm not the leader, so to speak.
Right.
I don't go ahead.
No, and I think that's the problem too, is that people get caught up in that title of, well, I am not a leader. Leadership, it's not a title, it's an act. Right. And I honestly believe no matter what walk of life, there is going to be a moment in everyone's life where you're going to be called upon to perform leadership or to be in a leadership position. Exactly. I just wanted to caveat on what you were talking about. So yes, I absolutely agree.
Oh yeah. And so I guess with your business, and how do you go about, what methods do you use to serve your clients?
So for my consulting business, a lot of the services are centered around the John Maxwell Team's method of learning and teaching. So I provide DISC training. As you know, DISC is an assessment tool towards behavior tendencies. Masterminds and lunch and learns, again, that's all centered around the publications from John Maxwell, and to include the leadership game, which is a really cool interactive board game. And what's really cool about that game is that you're able to hear what your team members feel about how you lead. And I think that's very unique, because it allows the leader to have some self-awareness. And I think that's very important to have as a leader, not necessarily just the leadership game, but just a lot of the services I provide are centered around gaining more self-awareness. Mm-hmm. And again, that the underlying part of self-awareness is just the attitude. Yes. So and then as mentioned before, I also now am a trainer at the Resilience Building Leader program. So all those things together is what falls under Revive Consulting.
Okay, wow, that it seems like you have a very comprehensive offering for people. Now, one of the things you did mention as well is, you mentioned two things that I want to touch on really quickly is the leadership game and how that also, it seems like that could be an opportunity for a little bit of, I'll say, defensiveness on the leader's part,
Right.
just because you are having the team, talk about the leader's style and the way they do things. So how do you address those types of things, or make sure the leader doesn't get defensive before you go into some leadership game style training and learnings for the team?
Yeah, that's a very valid point to bring out. And I think a lot of times as leaders, we're not willing to be vulnerable and put ourselves in a position where I don't want to use the word ridiculed, but maybe questioned on some of our motives. Because, I can have all the best intent in the world when I make a decision, but you on the receiving end might see it where, oh, he did this because of this, or so the intentions, and you're not being transparent. There can be a lot of confusion there. So as mentioned before in the game, when people do mention things like that, you kind of have to kind of put it in perspective for the person receiving it, even prior to the game. I can link up with whoever is, putting it together and let them know, hey, this is the environment it's going to be in. I think one example was, treat it like a fight club where you just, after it, you don't talk about it again. But I wouldn't go to that extreme. I believe conversations afterwards are really important. But you kind of set the ground rules, if you will, for the game. And of course, there's limits. You're not going to have someone stand up and just start yelling and cussing. And I think for the most part, when I was able to do it, the ground rules were understood and respected. But again, to answer your question, you just got to let that person know, hey, this is a time to be vulnerable. And being vulnerable it allows people to see that you're human, you're genuine, and again, help maybe build up some trust if there isn't any there.
Right. Okay, that's great. And you said you also are certified with DISC. Now, I know
Yes.
that's one of those things with communication styles and helping to understand, okay, hey, here's why I do, or here's the way I do. Can you talk a little bit real briefly about that process, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so there's the DISC assessment, and what I'll do is I'll send, if a client's interested in the workshop, I will provide them the link for the assessment. They'll go in, they'll take the assessment, and you can go in with the perception, either it's for the workplace or for at home. So when they answer the questions, you tell them to answer it in the context of at the workplace. More than likely, they want to know for the workplace. Right. So they'll go through the assessment. Doesn't take that long. I would say about maybe 10, 15 minutes at the very most. They go through. We'll go through the results. I'll set up some time and we'll just go through and see what their features are. So within DISC, you have your dominant, you have your interpersonal, you have your stability, and you have your compliant. And so all those different dominant behaviors, you'll be able to see, okay, well, and it's broken down into three ways. You have what's called your public mask, okay, which is what you show every day, right, at work. You have your private blind spot, which again is things you're not even aware of, but guess what? Everybody else can see it except you. Right. And then you have your self mirror, which is, hey, how do I see myself being every day? So that's what's really cool about it, is that it's broken down into those three categories, and you're able to see what your dominant feature, or excuse me, your dominant behavior is in those particular situations. And again, it brings huge amount of awareness. If you're able to do it with other team members, now you can see, hey, John over in data, he's really a really high I. I mean, he loves connecting with people, where, Jane over in HR, she's not very personal at all. She's very process driven. Being personal to her doesn't really matter. It's just very process. Just follow the process. So it's interesting because you really get to gain really powerful insight. And the idea, again, just similar to the situational leadership, you're able to adjust.
Right. Okay. Wow. That's great. All that offering and being able to provide that kind of value to a client and to an individual who's looking to to increase their level of leadership and their communication ability and just their self-awareness of, hey, here's why I do it, and help understand, okay, well, like you said, John doesn't receive it the way I'm giving it. So
Right.
maybe I can learn how to change that. So
Right.
that's great. Is there anything, any final words, how that people can contact you, connect with you, that you want to share?
Yeah, so I am on LinkedIn under my name, Greg R. Aguilar. I'm also on Instagram under my name. I'm also on Twitter, and my website, reviveconsulting.com. And of course, my podcast, Revive Thinking, is available on iTunes, Castbox, soon to be on Spotify. I didn't know this, but Spotify apparently wants you to have 5 episodes, so I'll be on there soon.
Okay.
So definitely subscribe and like to those.
Okay, that's great. I appreciate the time today, Greg. Thank you for joining us and talking about kind of your path to getting to where you are today. I appreciate the time. So
no, thank you, Michael. I'm very honored to be on this this video with you and being able to share and talk back and forth. And I look forward to connecting you more through the program.
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you. So I'll say thank you to everyone who joined us today, and a special thanks to Greg and being able to join us and get together over a video and just talk about how he's been able to navigate from his time into the military to owning his own business. So again, this has been the Business Leader Spotlight, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you for watching this week's video. I hope you were able to find one thing you can begin to apply to your life today. I would appreciate it if you would like, comment, and subscribe. Also, if you have any feedback, leave it in the comments below. Let us know if you know of any great guests to be on the spotlight. I look forward to your questions and your comments. Thanks again for watching.